Welcome back to Mean Streets, the podcast where we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir and more. I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And we are your cinematic sleuths. Now it's time to crack another case. For this case, we decided to bring on a special guest, an honorary cinematic sleuth. We have Julian De Baker with us, who is a actor, a podcaster, and pop culture connoisseur. Welcome, Julian, for coming on Mean Streets to chat about this exciting film.
Hi, guys. Hi, Luke. Hi, Matt. Thank you. I'm very glad to be a guest on your podcast.
It's good. It's good to have you, but let's not keep the people in suspense any longer. Matt, what do we have for them today?
Well, today we have a banger of a case.
I'm going to pause this. I gotta pause this. Matt, we gotta stop. Your delay is you're like 20 seconds behind.
Is it not working?
You're like 20 seconds behind.
Jesus.
Yeah, you're really, really, really far behind.
Oh, what the hell's that then?
I would maybe say restart your computer. I'm gonna pause so I can see it in the edit. Welcome back to Mean Streets, where we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir. I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And we are your cinematic sleuths, and it's time to crack another case. But for this particular case, we brought on a special guest with us. We have actor, podcaster, and pop culture connoisseur, Julian De Baker. Welcome, Julian, to Mean Streets.
Welcome, Julian.
Hey, Luke. Hi, Matt. Hi. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. But let's not keep the audience in suspense. Matt, what case did we bring Julian on to discuss?
Well, it's a case that deserves 3 sleuths, I think. It's 1982's Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford, Sean Young, and Rutger Hauer, written by David Webb Peoples and Hampton Fancher from the novel by Philip K. Dick, Do Android Dreams of His Electric Sheep, and it's directed, as we all know, by Ridley Scott. Do we need a plot summary for this film, gents?
I think so. What's the IMDb logline?
Shall we do it? The IMDb logline is that a Blade Runner must pursue and terminate 4 replicants who stole a ship in space and have returned to Earth to find their creator.
Bum, bum, bum. Blade Runner. Well, this is our 70th episode, number 70. So I figured for a big round number like 70, we needed to do a big film. And I've been itching to do Blade Runner ever since we started the podcast. But, you try to, you try to hold back. You try to not, hit all the big hitters early on. So we've waited long enough. And I'm thrilled that we actually get to sit and talk about Blade Runner for a while. But let's chat overall thoughts. Julian, we'll start with you. Blade Runner. Yeah. Do you remember the first time you watched it, the impression it had on you? What was that, and what are your your general spoiler-free thoughts on Blade Runner?
Yeah,
the final cut, I should say. We are talking about the final cut, just to make clear.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, to just, let's say, talk a little bit about the not final cut. Because when I first heard about Blade Runner, because of course we didn't mention it because I'm based in Belgium, and I think the movie is also well loved, but it was also a cult classic for many years prior to the director's cut in 1992. So not a lot of people knew about them. Well, let's say connoisseurs and cult lovers and lovers of great cinema, they knew about the movie, but it wasn't a huge blockbuster over here. I first got to know it in, I think the year was 2000. I had just gotten my first DVD player, and I remember that there was a supermarket, of all places, selling Warner Brothers DVDs at a discounted price. You guys remember those were the snapper cases, the cardboard based DVD cases. And that was the director's cut. That was that was not of course the final cut, because that hadn't come out. And I had never seen Blade Runner. I'd never seen it, but I knew the poster. I remember we're seeing the poster right now, the original poster art, gorgeous poster. And I remember being very intrigued by the words Blade Runner, and of course I loved Harrison Ford from Star Wars, from Indiana Jones, one of my favorite actors. And back then, I was 16 years old in the year 2000. Back then, I had a sort of a weird quirk that when I saw. When I had never seen a cult classic, I always wanted to watch it with a friend. I wanted to experience it for the first time with someone who already knew it, or who already had seen it, or loved it. And so one of my oldest friends, he was already a Blade Runner fan, because he had played the point and click game from 1997, the computer game. And so I invited him in once I picked up the DVD. We saw it in the year 2000. And I was immediately hooked. I loved the movie. So this was the director's cut, of course. Then fast forward to a few years later in 2007, when the final cut was announced, I picked up the very lavish, the gorgeous Voight Kampf suitcase version. There was a Blu-ray version and there was an HD DVD version. And I had backed HD DVD. I was a fan of the ill-fated format. So I had imported this gorgeous box set from the United States. Back then the dollar was very low, so I had a great deal. It was $100, but I only paid 70 euros. So because the exchange rate was great. And that was the first time that I really immersed myself in the world of Blade Runner, because there was this amazing 3.5 hours documentary, Dangerous Days. There was hours upon hours of content, 5 versions of the movie. I always think of, why can't George Lucas do this? Just give us every version of the movie. I mean, let us decide which. Yeah, let us decide which version we want to watch. I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with Ridley Scott disowning, for example, the theatrical cut because he hates the voiceover. That's great, but I think you should let the audience decide. Guillermo del Toro, for example, is still a big fan of the original, the voiceover cut. He likes it because he grew up watching it. I never saw or I never grew up with the voiceover, so I'm not married to it. But I have to say that in the end, I do prefer the final cut. I think the final cut is the best version, because it's the changes are very subtle. There's not a lot of revisionism or well, George Lucas-esque changes. No. It's very subtle. I mean, there's without spoilers, there's a Zora that's changed a little CGI wise. Her face has been supplanted on the stunt double. I think there's a jawline from Harrison Ford's son that they used, but it's all very subtle. They removed a few wires from the spinner. But I think overall the final cut is the way to go. For example, my spouse has never seen Blade Runner, and I think once the time is there to introduce her to Blade Runner, I think I will just show her the final cut, because that's in my eyes, that's the most complete version of the movie. So I think that's my short story on how I got to know Blade Runner.
I love that, and I have to agree with you. I love the fact that with Blade Runner, you can watch 5 different versions of this film, and most Blu-rays that you buy will have all of those versions on there. And I completely agree. Why the F won't George? Well, now it's Disney. Why won't Disney just put it out there for people? Like that is leaving money on the table, and I just don't get it, because I'm not a massive Star Wars fan, but I like the original trilogy, and I would 100% buy a 4K release of the original trilogy,
of course,
in the crummiest format. Just scan it and I would buy it.
Of course.
I don't know why they didn't
just give audience the option. I mean, I completely understand George Lucas that he doesn't want this warts and all version out there. I understand that, but don't bury it. I mean, just
exactly.
Give us a choice. Yeah,
indeed. Okay, I'll go next. My history with Blade Runner is very different and much shorter. I have always known about Blade Runner. I think, Julian, we're similar ages. I knew about it growing up, but I always knew, well, in my head, and what people were telling me was that, oh, that's just a really boring film. No one watches Blade Runner, didn't do very well. It's so, oh my god, that film's so boring. So I grew up knowing about Blade Runner, but thinking that it was a boring film that you just don't watch. And I thought, all right, whatever. I've not seen that one because everyone says it's boring. So there we go. And then it wasn't until like 2016, 2017 that I spoke to someone, and they were like, oh no, Blade Runner is really good. No, I know what it was. I know exactly what it was. It was the Red Letter Media did a review on Blade Runner, and it was Jay, and I don't think it was Mike. I think it might have been, I think it was someone else. I think it was one of the Canadian guys that they bring on. They talked about Blade Runner, and I was like, this sounds amazing. Why haven't I watched this? Everyone said it was boring. And so I went and found it, and I did a little bit of research, and I knew that the final cut was, Ridley's, he was as clear of a vision for the film that he had. And I thought, okay, I'll start with that. So I started with the final cut. And at this point in time, I was doing my master's, which was in, I was writing a noir crime novel as well. And I'm sitting here watching Blade Runner going, I can't believe I never knew that this was just a sci-fi noir. Like, how did this never click or fall into my world? Like, why did it take so long to sort of fall in front of me? But from that first watch, I was instantly hooked. I loved the performances. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the blend of 1940s, 1950s fashion with this futuristic twist. Everything about this film I just absolutely loved. And then it was just a heck of a lot of fun to go back over time and check out the other versions to see, do I like the voiceover version, or do I, which ones do you prefer? It's watching the international version was also quite fun. There's all these different sort of, ways to re-experience this film, but also every time I just experience the final cut, it's also fascinating. Like, it's such an interestingly multi-layered experience watching Blade Runner, but it was one that took me a very long time to find. But once I found it, I instantly fell in love with Blade Runner, with the world, and with the film. I think it's genuinely one of the best films. I think Ridley Scott said in that really, really good documentary, Dangerous Days, he's like, you can either be behind the times, which is no good, or you can be ahead of the times, which is equally no good. And I have to agree. I think Blade Runner was ahead of the time.
Yeah.
And that really was part of its, which we'll get into much later. That was part of its problem. But being able to watch it, now, or 10 years ago for the first time, experiencing it like that in the world that we were living in then, this thing, it's aged perfectly. I think it's one that's deserves the respect that it has now, and deserved the sequel that it got. And now I think it is one of my favorite films. So that's my take. Those are my overall thoughts. Matt, what about you?
Well, I'll just kick off saying two things. First of all, I echo the plea, if that's what we can call it, for Disney to release the original Star Wars trilogy as was. And as far as this podcast has any power, I'd like to put all that power behind that request, please.
We'll tag Disney.
Secondly,
when the episode
I'm a lot
out.
older than both you gentlemen. So I remember this film coming out at the cinema.
Oh, wow.
I remember it being released. I was only 8,
Wow.
I hasten to add. I was only 8 years old. So I didn't go and see it because at this time, Harrison Ford was, for me, Indiana Jones and Han Solo. And I wasn't a massive, outside of Star Wars, sci-fi fan. So it passed me by when I was 8 years old. Didn't really have any interest in it. It was only when I'd started to get into crime fiction and noir fiction that it came back onto my radar. by which time I was late teens, perhaps. And it was just a chance remark. Somebody said that one of the best noirs he'd ever seen was Blade Runner. And I thought, that's a sci-fi film. What's he talking about? And very much like you, Luke, I thought, that's sci-fi, not noir. And so I had a conversation with him about it, and he said, oh, well, the best way to answer that question is for you to watch it. And we watched it together. And I just said, I've missed out all these years. This is a noir film, and it's noir at its best. The sci-fi elements in this are sort of quite muted for me. They're there, but they're not prominent enough for me to say this is sci-fi that doesn't interest me. So that will have been the original version, I suspect. The other versions, I was sort of, do I need to see them? Maybe not. Eventually did. And overall, I would agree. The final cut, I think, is the one that I would show somebody now if they said, I want to watch Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it, and I want to watch it for the first time. I think this is the version that I would suggest they watched.
Yeah. I think it is the smart way to go. It's sort of, it's not necessarily like Lord of the Rings and in that, you have the theatrical cut and then you have the extended cut, and both are equally great for each of those purposes. This is one of those, the final cut is just, this is the director saying, this is really what I would have wanted to do from the very beginning, but because of these effing financiers, pushing their money weight around, I wasn't able to do the things that, would have worked. And I would have been very interesting to see how people reacted to a version of the final cut back in 1982. Would things have been different, or would it still have been, a little bit rejected? Because this film was rejected. This film wasn't a hit anywhere. So we can go behind the camera and talk about how it got made. So it released in June.
Sorry, Luke. I think it was successful in Japan. Only in Japan, I think.
That's not enough. That's not enough.
Sorry, continue.
It released in June of 1982. It cost $30 million, but its box office return was $41 million. So thank you, Japan, for $41 million. It was missing the mark in all of its. It was missing the mark in all of its markets. It just wasn't connecting for whatever reason. And it's a shame. I don't know if it's just people were expecting Harrison Ford to be Han Solo like, or like Indiana Jones like.
Yeah.
I
think that's true. I think that's what it is. I think people were expecting in 1982. People were expecting sci-fi to be Star Wars because you were right in the middle of the Star Wars boom.
Yeah.
Empire had only just come out. Everyone was still raving about that. Return of the Jedi, or Revenge of the Jedi, as it was then, before it was actually released, was eagerly anticipated. Yeah. And Ford had done Raiders of the Lost Ark, and again, Temple of Doom was eagerly anticipated because it was already been sort of suggested or mooted or rumored. So I think it wasn't what people were expecting either of Ford or of sci-fi. And we know what audiences are like when they don't get what they think they want. Yeah. They can vote with their feet, as it were. Yeah.
Very true.
It's also, I think, we appreciate it now, but it's kind of a slow burner. It starts out quite slow. It's not a flashy movie in any way. It's more of a thinking man's blockbuster. So I think even today it would be a hard sell, and we saw it with the sequel underperformed as well. I really thought that the 2049 would do great business because of the then 35-year-old build up for a sequel with millions of fans, but even those fans stayed at home apparently for the sequel. So it's not an easy sell. I think a cerebral slow burner of a sci-fi movie, because it's just not what people expect to see when they go to the theater, and they're expecting like laser blasts and explosions, and you don't get that in Blade Runner. It's more
I suspect that is a huge part of it. I mean, you can kind of compare this a little bit to Star Trek the motion picture. People that didn't do well famously either, but is, in my opinion, one of the best Star Trek films. It's Star Trek. It's cerebral. It's not shooting up stuff. It's philosophical. It's religious debates. It's ethical discussions, and that is Star Trek. And that's what the motion picture was. And it wasn't Star Wars. And people, I think you guys are right. I think people were wanting the Star Wars flashy action and adventure, and what they got was a very, you have to think. Yeah, it challenges you. And I think we all can, it's all pretty clear that challenging films don't always reap the biggest box office.
Yeah.
For better or worse, they don't. But quick question for you both. Are you fans of the novel "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" by Philip K. Dick? Have you read it? Have you not read it? Have you compared it? What are your takes on the novel?
Matt,
Julian, do you want to go first?
No, by all means, be my guest.
I have read it, but it was 20 years ago. I don't.
Sure.
I can't say I'm an authority on it. I remember it. I remember thinking when I'd read it that Blade Runner is a loose adaptation, shall we say?
Yeah.
But I think, all the elements are there. I think, but and again, this is from memory. All the elements are there, but I think it's not slavishly faithful. But I am a fan of some of Dick's work. Philip K. Dick's a very important sci-fi writer, and he's a very philosophical sci-fi writer. And one of my favorite short stories is one called The Skull, which is about a man who is sent back in time to kill a very influential and, as it will turn out, world-changing man who is going to give a speech in public.
Hitler.
And he's sent back to kill this person. And if this is sounding familiar, this is the plot of the Terminator.
Yes.
Except it turns out that when he realizes through a series of events who it is he's got to kill, he finds out that he is the man that is going to deliver the message. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
Philip K. Dick's got a lot of good ideas, and I don't remember thinking when I read the book, wow, this is word for word Blade Runner, but nor do I remember thinking they've just taken one idea and run with it. So I think it's a happy medium of faithful enough, but also able to stand as its own thing. But I say that purely from memory. A long time since I've read the book.
Yeah. Julian?
I haven't read it, so very short. I can't comment on it. So
no, that's absolutely fine. It's loosely a loose adaptation. I think is fair to say. A lot of elements are there. Sort of a decaying world, but there are different aspects that are extremely different. There's a more kind of emphasis on a religious aspect in the novel that's not in the film. There's an emphasis on almost a shame of owning an android animal. Rick Deckard owns a android sheep because his real sheep had died, and there's sort of a classism situation going on. There's elements of people going off world and things like that. So, but also like Deckard is in like a very terrible marriage in the novel, which is obviously excised for the film. So I think what it reminds me of a little bit is, I think there's lots of things that I can easily compare Blade Runner to. I think on the novel and film comparison, the Bourne trilogy, the Jason Bourne trilogy is probably a really good one, and that those deviate so far from the source material, but retain a certain essence of the source material, that it's still, you watch the Bourne Identity, it feels like you are watching Jason Bourne. It doesn't feel like it's just Bourne in name only. I think you can read Blade Runner or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and you can get an essence of this is a version of Rick Deckard and the Rick Deckard in the film. You can see that there are similarities there, because both are essentially noir pieces of literature or filmmaking. So they kind of retain that thread. But there are differences along the way. Now, the interesting thing, though, there is no Blade Runner in the novel. The term Blade Runner came from the writer. I think it was Hampton Fancher. nicked the term Blade Runner from another author's story. It had nothing to do with bounty hunting, had nothing to do with androids. He just liked that term and applied it in the film. So you will not find the term Blade Runner in the novel. It is just the film only. But as names go, what a fucking cool name!
What a great name it is! It's
Blade Runner.
Name.
I love it. I mean, I don't really. I mean, you know, if you want to pick something apart, like what does being a Blade Runner mean in terms of being a bounty hunter? It just sort of, it sounds like bounty hunter, but you said Blade Runner, bounty hunter. You know, but I don't really care that it doesn't make any sense because Blade Runner is just such an awesome,
it's even cooler when English is not your first language.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really cool name, Blade Runner. Yeah,
I love it. So as we were talking, you know, Ridley Scott directed this film. So prior to working on Blade Runner, he did a lot of work in film and television advertising. We recently brought him up in one of our episodes, and I think it was Angel Heart. I think him and the director of Angel Heart came up together at the same time in the UK filming adverts. And I'm spacing the Angel Heart's director's name at the moment, but oh well. His directorial debut, Alan Parker, that's it. So Scott's debut was in 1997 with The Duelists. You know, then went on to do Alien in 1979. And right before he did Blade Runner, he was attached to Frank Herbert's Dune. And then obviously he didn't end up doing Dune, but I wonder how Dune would have turned out had Ridley have stuck on and David Lynch not Lynchified Dune.
Probably more faithful, as I understand things.
Probably. But I don't know about you guys, but I find the writing process of this film very interesting. So it has two screenwriters, Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, and Hampton was the first writer who was brought on. He apparently didn't even like the novel really, which is probably why the film is so different. He looked at the novel, took a bunch of ideas from the novel, and then essentially went to town and did his own thing. But it wasn't passing the tests. People weren't liking it. Philip K. Dick didn't like it. Producer Michael Dealey didn't like it. You know, there was talk of voiceovers, but you know, again, even Philip K. Dick was skeptical of having a voiceover in the movie. It was a very kind of difficult process to sort of nail down the script for this particular movie. And one of the interesting things that Hampton did is apparently that in his version of the script, it was very tightly focused in space. Like everything was taking place in small rooms. Essentially, there was no world outside the window. There was no open world. And you know, I'm interested in your guys' take on that. What, you know, a version of Blade Runner where we don't go outside, where we don't get that sweeping Los Angeles cityscape view. We don't get that pull up into the Tyrell Corporation. What do you think of a Blade Runner that would have looked like nothing like what we got, but just claustrophobic and in little rooms? Would that have been interesting?
Matt, if you want.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would be. I don't know if this is. I don't know if this is because what we have is so good and so impressive and so beautiful to look at, and I'd forgotten how great this film looks until I rewatched it for this. I think to confine it to a.
Oh, Matt. Matt is going the way of the dodo.
Yeah. Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're lagging again.
Right. Do you want me to duck out? Can you hear me now?
I can, but how quickly are you hearing us is the question.
I'm hearing you straight away. Hearing you straight away.
You're back.
Okay. Just for a second, do like a 5 or 10 second pause, because I'm gonna need to edit around this. So that way I can see where the audio goes down, and then sort of just re-pick up your thought and yeah.
Matt is gone.
so if you, I've forgotten how beautiful this film looks until I watched it for this time, and if you take that away and if you confine it to small rooms, and just interiors, I think you lose a lot of impact of this film. I think you lose all the scope of it. I think you lose a lot of the world building, all of which is done so well that it feels so natural. It feels like a real time and place. And I think it would have just been almost soap opera-ish if it's just stuck in, an interior of one office or another office or a living room or an apartment or whatever it might be, and we just went from one to the other. I don't think I'd be a fan of that at all.
Julian.
Yeah, I agree. I think I rewatched it the day before yesterday in anticipation of this podcast. It's amazing how well it holds up production design wise. What is it? It's a 43-year-old movie, and it looks, well, it could have been made this year. It's so gorgeous. Of course, there's miniatures, but I'd never, if I didn't know that, for example, the beginning with the Tyrell Corporation, the building, and the we all know the sort of the vista of Los Angeles with the fire. I would never know this was a miniature if I hadn't read it or if someone told me in a documentary. It looks amazing. It's crisp. It's very, especially if you're watching it on Blu-ray or on 4K Ultra HD. It looks amazing. It stands the test of time design wise. And it would be a real shame if they had just relegated themselves to, well, office buildings or backstreet alleys. I mean, there are lots of alleys. The movie still has lots of alleys and dark and dank atmosphere, but it came together well. The combination of miniatures, real locations, and of course, studio work. I think it was shot in the UK, right? Was it Leavesden or was it somewhere else?
I think so. Yeah.
Do you guys remember? Because there were stories of the clashes between the British crew and the American crew.
Yes.
Apparently, the British crew insisted on tea breaks every hour. The Americans were like, "What? What?" But yeah, just it all blends together in a sort of perfect cocktail of, well, we tend to forget that there's not a single computer effect. There's not a single CGI thing. Well, of course, in the final cut, they did some CGI, but 99% of what we're seeing is real, and that's still amazing to behold, to witness. No, I don't think Blade Runner would have worked if it was just a noir in let's say office buildings. So it really needs the Los Angeles, even just the establishing shots where you see the Coca-Cola billboards or the spinner just flying. I just love the atmosphere. I love spending time in these moments, all those moments. I just love the way it was shot. What was his name? Jordan. I forgot the director of photography, but it's just gorgeous work all around. It's great stuff.
Yes. No, I agree. Jordan Cronenweth.
Yeah.
Was a DP. No, I totally agree. I think trying to relegate this film to just being in rooms is a sort of a boring approach. I think Ridley Scott was the one who came in and was like, "What's outside the window?" You know, what's going on out there, and we need to see what's going on out there, because I agree. The exterior establishing shots are stunning. Every time I watch this film and I watch that opening, and it starts with, and you see the eye open, and then you see the and you see the fire coming out of all those stacks, and as you said, those are all. It's all practical.
It's all real.
And
it's all real.
Then I get so angry when I watch these comic book movies that just look like people against green screens, and I'm like, there is no reason for any of this to look even remotely fake when 40 years ago we could do Blade Runner, because you're absolutely right. 40 years ago Blade Runner looked amazing. It still does. Because of the way they, I love when things are practical. I love when they shoot in real locations. I love when they can use real sets, real things, real tangible things, as opposed to looking at air or looking at a green ball on the end of a stick. And I think Blade Runner benefits from having a world that feels authentic. And you can watch other sci-fi movies that don't have the practical effects, and those worlds feel a bit CGI glossy, whereas you just don't get that with Blade Runner, because that I love the aesthetic of this sort of the refit. Everything has to be refitted to accommodate the pollution and accommodate all the change in technology, and that's not done with CGI. It's done with real practical stuff, so it just has a clunky real vibe to it. And a lot of the buildings, they as they described it, have their guts on the exterior, and it's part of the design of the buildings now. And again, you can see it in you can watch something like Ready Player One, but that just looks like CGI mesh, whereas this, because it's focused, it's focusing you on, and you're set in a real place. It just, I don't know. I love the vividness and I think Scott was right. I think Scott was right to say we need to look outside. We really need to go there. Now, for better or worse, Hampton was sadly removed from the project. It definitely got political. There were things Ridley wanted. He wasn't really it sounds like Hampton wasn't really listening to what Ridley wanted, and there was maybe a little bit of pushback. And ultimately that resulted in him being it sounds like he was kind of removed from the project, but didn't really fully know that he was removed from the project. They brought David Peoples on board, who famously said he read the script and he's like, I can't make this any better. And Ridley Scott laughed, because it's not about making it better. It's about, you're gonna listen to my ideas and you're gonna write my ideas and infuse them into this script, because it sounds like Hampton had produced a really strong script, but Ridley had really good ideas that needed to be meshed, and they needed, for better or worse, they needed this third person to do that fusion. And I think made Blade Runner better overall for it, but I can't not help but feel bad for Hampton, because there's that story where he's at a party and someone puts the script in front of him and he begins to read it. And he's like, this is crap. And then he starts seeing things that he wrote. And then he's hurt, basically. He says that it really hurt his feelings. And I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. I get that. You've poured a lot of heart and soul into something, then we're sort of unceremoniously released. And now someone is, building on your work and you have no say. And I don't know. I can feel the insults there. I don't know about your guys' thoughts on Hampton being excised and Peoples coming in. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you entirely. I can feel that pain. I can feel that pain. Of all, when you put all your work into something and then somebody comes along and essentially takes the credit, that's gotta hurt. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much to add to that really. In that, it's a lot of the spade work had been done. I think by the time Peoples gets on board, and like you say, he just sort of has to Scottify it, if that's the word. And I don't know where Hampton ends and Peoples begins. I can't see any marked shift, but as a screenplay, I think this is top notch. It really is. It's a superb piece of screenwriting.
Yeah. Definitely chaotic, definitely tension, full of tension, but the ultimate product that, released was a serious work of art, and I think that's the thing to remember. I think I would say David Peoples, Hampton, Fancher, and Scott, everyone who was trying to put something into this story, I don't get a sense that it was ego that was involved. I get a sense that it was everyone wanting to, they were putting the art forward. Harrison Ford was involved in this a little bit. He was like, I'm a detective, but I don't do any detecting. And he was right. There were earlier versions that he's not really doing much. And so, they worked to rewrite certain things so that the voiceover was basically doing the detecting. And he's like, well, let's change this around. Let's see me doing something. It's like, absolutely.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Totally. So I like that. I like that I wasn't getting any sense of egos going involved with this, but not an easy journey. Not an easy journey. Let's talk a little bit about casting, because there were a handful of interesting alternatives for Rick Deckard, and I'm assuming both you guys have an idea of some of the names that were on this list.
This is one of my favorite games.
Yes. I'll read the names off to you guys, and then we can kind of discuss who you would have liked to have seen or who you would have thought is an absolute disaster. So, alternatives for Rick Deckard. Interestingly enough, Hampton wrote Rick Deckard for Robert Mitchum, who famously played Philip Marlowe and is famous for many, many, many classic film noirs of the 50s and so on. And he was at a good age where he could have played I'm about to retire, bounty hunter. So he really wrote this for Mitchum, which I find very interesting. He's numero uno. Others included Gene Hackman, Sean Connery, Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood, Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, and the list goes on. But we'll stick with these guys. Out of this pile of rather famous or up-and-coming actors, for some of them, do you see any version of Blade Runner working as well as it does without it being Harrison Ford? Go with you, Julian.
Do you want to tackle that first?
Well, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, he's one of my favorite actors. So, of course, I'm very fond of Ford in the role. Out of the names you mentioned, I think I could see Tommy Lee Jones, because he also has a sort of the grumpy, the Harrison Ford. whenever he's asked a question about the holiday special, Harrison Ford gets very angry. So that could work. Other than that, I don't know. I think Robert Mitchum, of course, great actor, but I think I'd say he was a little too old. He was like 65. Of course, it's great for the one last job retirement, but could he have pulled off the more physical part of the role? Perhaps he could have. I don't know.
Maybe that's why it was all written for rooms rather than acting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, true. Al Pacino would have been very weird, I think.
Yes.
Very weird, because of course, excellent actor, and we're not debating the excellence of Al Pacino, but if you think of, I mean, Al Pacino has done a lot of great stuff, but people sort of always go to The Godfather or Dog Day Afternoon or I don't know, Carlito's Way, or even Dick Tracy. but yeah, I mean, I love him in Dick Tracy. He's great, but I never think he would. Perhaps we'll never know. He could have been a great Blade Runner, but I have trouble seeing Al Pacino in this movie. I don't know why. I think he would sort of be a mismatch for the material, but I can't put my finger on why Al Pacino would not work. Whereas Tommy Lee Jones would work in my book, and Sean Connery would be very hilarious because, of course, he's always Sean Connery. So I'm thinking of the I'm now thinking of lines, classic Blade Runner lines with this Scottish brogue.
Yes.
You've done a man's job, sir, and then finished. Finished. So
people have walked out on me before, but never when I've been so nice.
Of course, he is Harrison Ford's father in Indiana Jones, so it could be a great casting gag to have him sort of like Deckard's father. That would be great. But no. What about you, Matt? What do you think of
the only one that I think really could do it for me, and despite the age, is Mitchum. I mean, we're 7 years after he's done Marlowe in Farewell My Lovely, but so he is a bit too old. But I think the world weariness that he has in Farewell My Lovely would have, certainly on the voiceover, would have transferred extremely well. I'm not sure about Sean Connery for exactly the same reasons. I'm not sure about Al Pacino for exactly the same uncertain reasons. There's just a project and actor mismatch that I don't buy there. Tommy Lee Jones I can agree with, and I think Gene Hackman would have been quite interesting to see.
Gene Hackman could pull it off probably.
I think he could have pulled it off, but there's no doubt this is Ford's film for me. And whilst it's Mitchum would be very good at the one last job and heading for retirement and all that. When he wants to have, Ford has a really young man's sort of jaded cynicism.
Yes,
which comes across really well. If you've been a Blade Runner for a number of years, it's got to be a pretty soul-destroying job, and that's what I think Ford has. He's old before his time in this, and I think that's a magical quality to have. The only other actor I that I found who was in the running who I just think would be hilarious is Burt Reynolds.
Oh my god!
with the mustache. Yeah.
On Burt Reynolds in the 70s, I could, Deliverance Time, I could probably buy, but Burt Reynolds in the 80s, not a chance. Not a chance. I think Mitchum and Gene Hackman would be and Tommy Lee Jones would be my alternative favourites, but it's Ford's show all the way for me.
Yeah. When I looked at these names, I just sort of looked at, everyone felt a little bit too obvious. In terms of the big names, Gene Hackman had already done things like Night Moves and things. Sean Connery just is Bond. Jack Nicholson had already done Chinatown. Paul Newman had done the Harper movies. Clint Eastwood is Dirty Harry. I'm like, none of these are really standing out. Now, I think you're absolutely right, Julian. I think Tommy Lee Jones is by far the only one who I would have seriously thought as someone who could have given Ford a run for his money. Yeah. Weirdly enough, though, Dustin Hoffman was the strongest contender.
I read that. Yeah. That would be very weird as well.
They were even doing like sketches, like they were doing like when they were with his face as Deckard. He's too baby faced.
Too baby faced, yeah. And
even though he's older than Ford, he's 5 years older than Ford.
Is he? Wow.
Yeah.
He looks younger.
Yeah, oddly enough, and I'm just thinking of it now, because was such an amazing actor. I think Rutger Hauer could have done it as well, the Blade Runner, because he's so brooding and intense and cool. One of the best of all time, especially one of the best villains, Roy Batty. Of course, he's perfect as Roy Batty, but I think he could have pulled it off playing Blade Runner as well. but of course, a blonde Blade Runner would be a little weird, perhaps. Of course, yeah, it's like Daniel Craig, who was mocked for being a James Blonde, but of course they could have just dyed his hair. So yeah, he could have done it perhaps, because he's very. We haven't mentioned him in this podcast, but he's, of course, to me, he's like the standout actor. He's so good in Blade Runner. As Roy, as the leader of the replicants, actually,
yeah.
I
agree, and we can. I definitely want to talk about Rutger Hauer in just a second, because I think you're absolutely right. I think I think all these choices are fascinating, but I think Ford is the one that really stands out. Sure. I think overall the casting on this film is darn near perfect. There's no one that I'm like that doesn't deliver a pitch perfect performance, really. And I know that there were problems with Sean Young. Ridley cast her without, basically just based on her looks, and she was young, she wasn't used to this level of production, she needed to sort of up her game really fast, and Ford had to sort of take her under his wing and sort of, get her into the scenes and all that kind of stuff. And there were questions about it. They're like, Ridley, you've casted her just on her looks. But I mean, my God, Sean Young is stunning in this film. Like, she is beautiful. But I think that the performance that they get from her is fantastic. I think whatever struggles they were having getting these scenes nailed down, the takes that we got from her, I think are fantastic. I can't see anyone else as Rachel. I think she is Rachel, and she pops as Rachel, and it's just one of those things. I think Ridley made the right call. Whether he made the call based on the right things, I don't know, but his overall gut instinct, I think, was right to cast her, because I think her and Ford eventually got it right. I know there was questions about whether they had the right chemistry or not, but what's your take on the Ford Young kind of back and forth? Do you think that they worked? Do you think they didn't work? Go with Julian.
I think because I heard or I read about they had sort of an awkward chemistry, or Ford wasn't really into her. I think they had a sort of a very different approach to acting, which he found off-putting. I think she was not really experienced at the time. She hadn't done a lot of big movies. But perhaps it enhanced her performance, because of course she has to be awkward. I mean, she is a replicant. Oh, sorry, that's really a spoiler.
Oh no, it's fine. We can talk spoilers. Anyone listening to this podcast knows that it's spoilers from the very beginning, basically.
Yeah. Okay. No, because you mentioned in the beginning, can you do like a spoiler-free?
Well, I mean, like, don't dive into like the things that you loathe or something like that. Yeah. That's what we meant. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. So so she is a replicant, but she doesn't know. Replicant. She doesn't know it yet, or she finds out during the course of the movie. So I think it works, that her awkwardness, her sort of stiff delivery, monotone talking. But then again, for example, when I was rewatching the movie, I do think that the love scene is still quite awkward, because he's sort of, and I don't want to mention any sort of, I mean, there's not implications.
Don't mention the buzzwords.
No, but I mean, there is a sort of awkwardness in this love scene, because of course she's inexperienced, and Ford, Deckard, is sort of coming onto her, forcing himself onto her. But again, I think in the context of the story, in the context of replicants versus humans, it works. So Sean Young does an admirable job of being Rachel. however, as we've heard the other awkward Sean Young stories of Catwoman, etc. So I think she did sort of sabotage her own career prospects. But for this movie, she was great. She was perfect.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. I think her entrance when you first see her, is absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular.
Yeah. Do you like our owl?
Do you like our owls? Yeah, and she's like all in black with these massive Joan Crawford shoulder pads,
Yes,
and the hair. I mean, and just the way she walks. I mean, it's not all about the costume and the hair and makeup. It's the way she walks, the way she carries herself. It's absolutely brilliant. I remember once in a jokey conversation, somebody saying that Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't act, and their evidence was his delivery of lines as the Terminator. And my brother said, "What do you think John Gielgud would do if he was asked to play a robot?" And it's the same sort of thing, if she's a bit stiff and unnatural, she's supposed to be. That's the whole sort of. She's playing something that's not human. Although it's meant to look and act human, it isn't still. And that's a difficult thing to pull off, I think. And this whole talk about chemistry, again, it's not the natural human chemistry that you're going to get in a situation like this. So I agree with Julian. I think it's all for the world that we're in and the story that we're telling. I think it's dynamite, this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly awkward in places, and especially in one particular place, it's awkward. But again, for the story that we're telling, I think it has an explanation for it.
Yeah. No, I think so. I said I think she's really great in this film. I think the Voight Comp test scene with her is just outrageously good. Where she ambushes Deckard in the lift up to his apartment, and then he's like, "Okay, it's a bad joke. You're real. You're not a replicant. You're fine. Go away. Go home. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get you a drink." Like all of those moments. I can't say moments without instantly going there. These moments that we have with her throughout the whole thing. When she blows Leo's head off. And then she's she has the shakes. Like she is she's coming alive as the film progresses. And I think that is intentional, but whether that is also Young coming alive or just the acting of it, I think her performance nails that. Her performance goes from this kind of this stiff what am I to I'm trying to, now my whole world is shaken because I found out that I might just be a couple of years old or a couple of hours old, you know what I mean, to running away with this guy who essentially assassinates her kind, falls in love with, it's and I think you feel that complication, particularly in the love scene. I know a lot of people dog on that. I think that scene is hurt by editing. I think there are other longer cuts and different cuts of that scene where they get together that maybe come across less forceful. But I don't read Rick Deckard's come-ons as being negatively negative. I think they're both struggling with their feelings, and I don't think she's doing something against her will. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think she's doing anything that's against her will. I think, and she says it. She says that her concern is she doesn't know if her feelings are real or if they're implants, right? So she actually does say that, and that's what that's her internal dilemma. And Deckard is like, but his feelings, he feels they're real. He feels her feelings are real, and he's basically just sort of like, screw this whole crazy nonsense that's going on with these replicants and stuff. There's something between us, and let's go for it, and that's essentially what they do. But I know there's always been a lot of criticism over that love scene, but I don't know if you have anything to add on the love scene take, but that's my love scene hot take. I don't think it's as bad as
I would only say it's a far cry from James Bond and Pussy Galore in the barn.
It's a far cry from James Bond in Skyfall, where he steps into the shower with a former
widow
sex. No, where he yes, with someone who was abused and used for that. So
that's a better example actually than the hayloft in Goldfinger.
Yes. Do you have anything on that, or should we stop with that scene?
No, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. Again, like I said, I think most people, most of the cast in here is absolutely perfect. Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty.
Yeah.
He's not in the film that much, but my God, what a presence!
Yeah,
what a presence!
There's not a scene where he is not just, I don't know, dynamite. You can't take your eyes off him. He's such a Roy Batty is such a fascinating, complicated character because he's introduced as the villain, and I mean, my question is: he a villain? Are any of the replicants villains?
No. Well, no, not to me. To me, they're only a short distance from Frankenstein's monster, who is made a villain. He doesn't ask to be born. He's had no control over his existence, and then he's totally shunned. And when he asks for the one thing to make him happy, which is a mate, he's shunned again, and he says, right, well, in that case, I'm going to make everyone pay, because that's all you've left me with. And I don't think we're too far away from that sort of territory here, in the replicants. I think, who do you think the villain is in this?
I'll let Julian answer that.
Well, I do want to add that he didn't have to kill Sebastian, poor J.F. Sebastian, and he didn't have to kill Tyrell. Of course, he's acting on impulses, but I would say he still has shades of villainy, or at least anti-villain, because I agree with he's sort of pre-programmed to do what he does, but because he's become more human than human, he still could choose not to kill semi-innocent people. Let's leave it at that. I mean, even though I would not call Tyrell an evil man. He made some questionable choices in sort of limiting their lifespan and limiting their just their longevity and whatever. But he's still a businessman, and
commerce.
Perhaps he didn't expect. We're talking about Nexus 6 models, and even Nexus 7 models are mentioned. I don't think he expected them to be that perfect. If you can probably think of a Nexus 1 or a Nexus 2 being no more than a hired hand or used for manual labor, whatever. And then they became too perfect, and they started developing feelings and thoughts and independence. So is Tyrell a villain? I would say no. Is Roy Batty a villain? To a certain extent, yes, because I think he didn't have to kill the innocent J.F. Sebastian. But of course, that's what makes him so great, because he's a flawed character. He's not a perfect. He's not a. But I do think he still has sort of shades of being a villain. So I think it's great that Matt wholeheartedly says no, he's not a villain, because I always feared him to be at least some sort of a villain. The closest this movie has to a villain, because of course Leon kills. How many people does Leon kill? Well, no, he doesn't, because Holden is not dead. I always thought Holden was dead, but there's even a deleted scene where he's in sort of a cryogenic chamber. So Leon doesn't kill any. No, Leon doesn't kill anybody. Pris doesn't kill. Does Pris kill anyone? No.
No.
And Zora doesn't. No. They all try to kill Deckard, and they all try to kill. So actually, Roy Batty is the only one who succeeds in killing two people. So that makes him at least the most villain out of all. But again, he is sort of pre-programmed to do. Is he fully aware of what he's doing? Is he 100% independent in his thoughts, or is he hardwired? That's a riddle for the ages, probably.
Yeah, I agree. But with sort of both. I think there is a middle ground. I think yes. I think Roy Batty is the closest thing that you get to a villain. Though his motives, I think, are quite understandable given the circumstances.
Yeah.
There's that bit where Leon is fighting Deckard, and he's like, "Now you know what it's like to live in fear."
Yeah.
These people are the replicants are enslaved people, and their lifespan is limited, and all they want to do is not live in fear and not live in fear they're going to be killed, and they just want to have a normal lifespan. They don't want to die after 5 years, right? They want to have a good life, and that's you're creating these things that are, quote, more human than human, which begs a lot of question with what we're doing with AI at the moment. I've been saying for years, we're definitely not heading towards a Star Trek future. We're heading towards a Blade Runner future. And we're going to be dealing with very similar questions in the next 10 to 15 years of more human than human. But there's something very interesting about Roy Batty to me, and that is there's an analogy with him. He is sort of there's a religious aspect to the novel that is quite excised in the movie, but he is sort of Adam. He is Adam, who is coming out of, when you look at the early books of, the book of Genesis and stuff like that, when Adam and Eve, rebel and whatever, that is sort of them coming out, stepping out of sort of, they're no longer juveniles anymore. They're sort of learning independence and wanting to step out on their own and not have to live under the shadow of their creator, right? And that's essentially what Roy's doing. He wants out of the shadow of his creator, but he's also pissed off at his creator for limiting him for no reason. What do you mean I can't eat this freaking apple? I'm going to eat this apple, you son of a bitch. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he does it. Yeah. You're going to limit my lifespan. No, if you're going to limit my lifespan, I'm going to limit your lifespan. And that's I agree that he shouldn't have killed poor Sebastian. That is a collateral damage that is quite sad. Doesn't Roy Batty also kill the guy who makes the eyes?
Oh, right. That's 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah.
That guy didn't need to die. So, there are clear moments where, Roy's a desperate man doing desperate things for a desperate reason. But like all good noir, no one is perfect. Everyone is flawed because Deckard, he's an assassin. He's murdering these life forms, these people who want to live. They don't want to die, and he's murdering them. His job is to murder them just because of who and what they are. And so it creates this interesting concept of who really is the villain. And I would say sort of everyone is a sort of villain in this piece, but I would say that towards the end, I think Roy Batty sort of understands, or kind of he accepts his demise, and maybe there's a sort of a sense of understanding that he's gone too far, which is why I think he saves Deckard from falling and doesn't kill him in the end. But you also get that sense of Deckard as this thing is moving on, where Rachel's like, well, what happens if you're told to kill me? Well, I wouldn't do it, and even when Deckard, I think, kills what's her name, the Zora, he feels something there. He feels something that we hadn't really seen in him before. And so I think both him and Roy are sort of two sides of the same coin. They're both sort of bad guys, realizing that their actions aren't getting the results that they probably want, nor should they necessarily be doing the things that they do. But Yeah, that was a huge tangent based off of Rutger Hauer being amazing.
Yeah. But an important tangent, I think. Because it's for me, it's part of what the film is about. It's what the film is saying, and it's one of the reasons this film makes you think. If Batty was an out and out villain, if there was absolutely no middle ground, like as you say, Lou, then he'd be far less interesting, and the film would be far less interesting. This is one of the, given the lot that you are dealt with in life, how do you deal with it? And if you think it's unfair, what do you do about it? I mean, those are quite big moral questions, And from Deckard's point of view, you're right. He realizes that what he's doing may not be the best choice of career. And I think at the end, in the final confrontation, they sort of learn something about each other on both sides, And that speech, which we'll talk about in a bit, but that's high up there for me with the Indianapolis one from Jaws. I think it's absolutely, talk about a character in a few lines. That's it. And the scope of it, which is another reason why this film shouldn't be set in rooms.
Yes, I agree. Right. I think there's a lot of other interesting production issues and things that we could dive into, but we might save that for a different Blade Runner discussion, because there's so much we get into. I really want to talk really more about the story with you guys and get your thoughts and opinions on some of your favorite scenes, and we obviously talked a lot about Rutger Hauer's Roy Batty and stuff, but let's go through some of your guys' favorite scenes throughout the piece. We'll start with you, Julian. What's walk us through what are the things that really stand out to you?
Let's see. Of course, it's always just random bits and pieces. I love the ordering the sushi.
Yes.
Two.
Yeah.
He say you Blade Runner. No, it's there's something so mundane about a character ordering food, and we don't see it enough, I think, in movies. That's why I love Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11, because he's always eating. Yes. I love it when a character is eating, because it's something we do every day, but you rarely see it in movies because of course it takes up too much time of the plot. It's not plot relevant that a character is eating. It's like when a character never goes to the toilet because it's not relevant to the plot. But I love it when they do it. And that's why I'm very grateful to, I don't know who decided to include it, let's say either the screenwriter or Ridley Scott, to have just and then I love, of course, the payoff to that scene. He's still eating in the car. He's still eating in the spinner. so Gaff is talking about this assignment, and he's talking about Bryant, and you need to come back. You need to come out of retirement. And he's just eating his noodles. Great. I just love that. Let's see. Continuing on. I love the character of Bryant. He only has like 2 or 3 scenes, but I love the atmosphere of his desk. He pulls out the classic trope of the 2 shot glasses and pouring the drink, as if that's going to make a difference. I love sort of these small details. Of course, how can I forget the opening scene? Once we mentioned the Holden with Leon, that's it sets the tone perfectly. I love the tortoise question because I remember the very first time when I watched it, I didn't know what a tortoise was either. I knew what a turtle was because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Tortoise is not the first word you learn when you're learning English. I think I could see myself in Leon at that point in time, like, what's a tortoise? And then there's so many scenes. I love, because Rutger Hauer has an amazing American accent as well, because it's not easy for a Dutch or a Belgian guy to speak American, but I love that you can hear him slip once. His accent is slipping once when he says, "Did you get your precious photos?" And there's something about the way he says photos. It's more of is sort of a Dutch word, because in Dutch it's almost the same. We say fotos. Fotos is the Dutch word, so it's the same. We just spell it with an F instead of a PH. Photo. But there's something weird about his inflection. Did you get your precious photos? And
yes,
I love that. I love that. Right. I also love just the fact that Leon is so obsessed with his photos, because of course he has no memories of its own. It's also fake. It's the same with Rachel. They don't have childhood memories, but still Leon is convinced that these photos are important to him.
Yeah.
I love the snake scene with Zora.
Should we talk about that scene? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. But first, we should listen to Matt's favorite scenes, perhaps.
You've just covered them, Julian, so we can move on. I was going to say the snake scene, but I would just like to add about the noodle eating. The great line where he says, "My wife calls me sushi," or my ex-wife called me sushi because I'm a cold fish. I think that is just gold.
Sushi, cold fish.
That's only in the narration, right?
It's in the VO. It's in the
narration. Yeah, it's in the narration.
I've never seen that version, so
it's one of those. I mean, Luke just said it's terrible, and it is terrible. But I laugh out loud at it every time.
Yeah.
The only one that I would add is the end, the opening scenes, and the world building in those opening scenes. Rachel's first appearance. And the chase of Zora through the streets, and also the chase of Batty. So added to the ones that Julian's already mentioned. Those are my favorite scenes. We can do me very quickly.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll pick some of these and we'll dive into them a little bit more. But one thing I want to say on the voiceover stuff, no one liked the voiceover. Ridley didn't like it. Ford didn't like it. Nobody wanted it except stupid financiers and bad producers. They're the only ones who didn't want it. And there was interesting discussions about it, and basically people, Ridley and them were like, well, you're basically dumbing down our movie. Like you're removing all of the subtleties of this movie by doing this, lambasting the audience with this clunky, stupid narration. And there's wonderful bits in that Dangerous Days documentary where they're playing clips of Ford reading stuff, and he's like, "What the fuck am I saying? Like what? Everyone's just sort of like, what? I don't know." Which and when you listen to the voiceover version of the film, I think that is partly why his delivery is so weird, because he doesn't know what he's saying. He's just, it's like asking Harrison Ford to do you think Han Solo would come back as a Force ghost? I don't know what you're talking about. There's essentially, you're asking him to voice over a film about. So it's such a bad idea.
And it's not really very good writing either.
No, it's not. It's literally it's terrible. I have a lot of, there's a lot of really great scenes in this, but I do kind of want to talk about like Deckard in his flat, because this is a neo-noir, and this is the closest neo-noir has gotten to, in my opinion, to replicating in color what you get in a black and white film. And I think Deckard's flat is one of the standout sets for that, where there are these areas of just pitch blackness, or half of his face is pitch black in shadow, while behind him is this blinding, brilliant light streaming in through the window. And just the way that set in particularly is done, it's so claustrophobic and so tight. And again, I can't imagine the whole film being in that, but I love the fact that his space is just this cluttered, claustrophobic, dark. It captures film noir. It captures classic noir in color in a way that I don't think any other neo-noir has been able to achieve. There's just something so delicious about the way they use it. And Ridley, for some of us, for cost reasons, everything takes place at night. There's rain, there's fog. It's because that is a really good way to mask production flaws. Well, we can't, how are we going to hide this? Turn the lights off, put rain, put fog, you know, but it adds such an atmosphere. And one of my favorite scenes, or some of my favorite scenes, are the ones set in his flat, because it's such a moody place. But I wanted to ask you guys, because obviously in the flat we get the famous unicorn dream.
Yeah.
And you know, there is the big debate. You know, Rachel says, have you ever taken the Voight Comp test? Are you sure you would pass? What do we think? Let's dive into, is Deckard a replicant or is he not? Julian, you can lead on this. What's your take on this?
I know that back then Ridley Scott was the only believer in the theory, or he was a big proponent of the theory, and nobody else backed him on that. And in more recent years, I think Ford has even come around to it. And there was a 2023 interview where he said, yeah, I think he's a replicant. I'd say that there are not enough setups to be a convincing or sort of a definite conclusion to, yeah, he's a replicant. But there are, of course, subtle things like there's one shot where his eyes turn red, out of focus in the back when Rachel is in the front. There's, of course, the unicorn, but the unicorn was not present in the theatrical cut, so that's also more of an after the fact thing. But I do. No, there's another theory. For example, he's also woefully underpowered. I mean, without Rachel, Leon would have shot him.
Yep.
Without the other dancers coming in, Zora would have, killed him or at least strangled him. Without Roy Batty's sort of humanity taking over in his dying moments, he would have died as well. So he's never able to adequately, because it's funny, Brian is always going on, you're the best Deckard, I need the best Blade Runner, but he's not really that good. he's always failing at his job, actually, perhaps because of he has a drinking problem. Perhaps that's also,
but that's also the perfect noir trope. Your hero is failing all the way to the end.
I love it. But if he really was like a definite, let's say he really was, without a shadow of a doubt, if he was a replicant, I think he would have been a better replicant, although he could be, of course, a Nexus 4 model or a Nexus 5 model. True. But even then I don't know. It's really difficult. I don't think he's a replicant. I don't think he is, but I love the implication. I love the what if or the perhaps, and I love the ending, the final shot, especially in the final cut. So the not happy ending. I love when I love when you see the sort of doubt in his eyes when he finds the unicorn origami, and he sort of crumples it, and then he's like, yeah, they're on to me. And that's, of course, something that a replicant would think at that point in time. So I'm still not. I'm in the camp that he's human, because of course there's also the lovely theory that Roy Batty in the end is more human than the actual human. So that would not that dynamic would not work if they're both replicants, because then he's learned nothing, because then they're just the same. And it's so lovely that he's learning something from a replicant. But even then, if he is, it's still a very nice theory. So, but I'm not convinced. I don't know. I don't know about you guys.
I think I'm the same. I've always been, you know, I don't know, maybe it's the writer in me, I don't know, but I agree with what, you know, Ford said very early on. It's like, well, if he's a replicant, it kind of ruins his whole character arc. And I agree. I think that's kind of that's where I'm like, yeah, exactly. If Deckard is a replicant, what he learns along the way, going from being the hunter of something to understanding that thing to falling in love with that thing and then running away with that thing, you know, without with him just secretly also being a replicant who doesn't know he's a replicant, it just sort of, you know, it's one of those things where, like, I like the implication. I like that it can be implied and suggested, but I think if you really think it through, it's sort of a bit too convenient for me. I don't abide by that concept. I think, and this is the one thing that I think Ridley got wrong. I don't see the unicorn dream as an implanted dream. We are living in a world of replicant animals. This could just be an actual memory of seeing a unicorn replicant, a unicorn robot thing that someone concocted in some zoo somewhere. You know what I mean? That's just a memory that he has, perhaps. And what does that unicorn represent? I mean, it's in an open green space. It's free, it's wild, it's not constrained, it's not choked by the city. The unicorn left at the door, is that Gaff being like, all right, go, you're free, go. That, to me, that's what I read into that. I don't read into that oh, they know his mind, this is why he's. I'm like, no. I think my reading is that it's the freedom of what that unicorn represents. Because I mean, how many times is a unicorn used as this sort of like a symbol of something magical and unattainable? Freedom, is a unicorn. Being out of this, like I said, out of the choked, compressed, oppressive city is a pipe dream. But at the end, he goes chasing his pipe dream. He runs away with Rachel, chasing the unicorn, chasing that freedom. That's my reading on it. What about you, Matt?
Much as I would like to dramatically announce that I'm a polar opposite interpretation of this than you two, I'm not. I'm going to be very dull. And I remember when this theory first came out, or when I first heard this theory, and it was in my early 20s. And I remember thinking, even then, that doesn't work for the reasons that you both said. If he's a replicant, he's learned nothing. And I think there's a much more powerful message that we can learn about humanity from something that is not human, as Terminator 2 went on to explore. There's a lot more powerful message in that than there is in we can learn from our own kind. I mean, that doesn't go anywhere near as far in powerful narrative terms to me. And I think it's a cheap theory. It's sort of a theory that someone who thinks they're being clever would come up with, but I don't think the film supports it necessarily. I think there's certainly enough for you to say maybe, otherwise we won't be talking about it. But I think on balance, I agree with what you both said, and I certainly agree with Luke about the narrative drive of this. That it makes no sense if he is one, but it makes a lot of dramatic sense for him to go after these things, meet one, fall in love with one, and ultimately learn from one. That makes a lot more sense. And I think the unicorn thing is, he's already seen Gaff make a unicorn origami figure, and we see things in our conscious lives, and we then interpret in different ways in our dream lives, because our dreams are sort of processing what we've done through the day. I think it's partly that, partly the freedom thing. I agree with that he then goes out and finds his life away from the slums and the rain of the city, and away from what he was, and he leaves his past life behind. I agree with all that. I agree with both of you on all counts. I don't think Deckard's a replicant. I don't think the film supports it. And if he is, I think it dilutes some of the power of the film. So I can't believe it on that point alone.
Yeah.
Or I refuse to believe it on that point alone.
I think it's fair enough. I think, in my opinion, I think Blade Runner 2049 goes a long way to reconfirm that Deckard is a man, a human, and not a replicant. And I also like the fact that in 2049, and this is actually connected to this film as well, the opening scene is so blatantly obvious that Ryan Gosling's character is a replicant. Which, interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys knew this, the opening scene of 2049, where he goes out to where Gosling's agent, what's his name? Jay? Is it Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Agent Jay. In my head, I think of Men in Black, of agents K and J. And because his name is J, I'm always getting mixed up with Men in Black. And it's so annoying. Anyway, Officer K or Officer J, God damn it. See, just did it. When he goes out to Dave Bautista's little farm, that was one of the original openings for Blade Runner. That was meant to happen in this particular movie. So I quite like that was recycled for that one. But yeah, I think I do also think we should talk about just briefly the Zora moment, because I love Deckard sort of sneaking into her changing room. I like the sort of I'm pretending to be this I don't know, this sort of,
it's like
what is he, like some sort of
he's like a talent scout or a talent agent or something.
Yeah, it's
from decency, from the
he's working for a department. He's like
Department of Decency or something.
Yeah. And I like these sort of blags his way in, and it's fun. It's fun because Harrison Ford looks like he's actually having fun.
Mm-hmm. He affects a different accent. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And he rarely does. He's not that kind of actor who uses accents a lot.
No, he's not. So I thought that was a really fun scene, but I love just how quickly it turns and becomes gut-wrenching. You know, she clocks what he is, she clocks what's happening. They have their little fight, and I feel the chase scene is one of the best scenes in the film. Where she's, running. And the thing is, the thing that makes it so emotional is that she's just out there being a dancer, right? She's not doing anything bad. She's not hurting anybody. She's just trying to live. And then she knows this guy is here to kill her. And then she is running for her life.
Yeah.
And so go on.
Yeah, I also read that she's the provider of the replicants. So she's the one who has a job, and she takes care of the other three. Don't have any sort of income or way to support themselves. So that's what she does. She's found something to do.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
I read it, so it's not something I came up with on my own.
Yeah. Well, because I guess Leo or Leon, he's fired at the beginning of the movie, and then what are the other? What's Roy doing, and what is Pris doing? Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's a really good point. Yeah, they're sort of reliant on her for sure. I can see that. That's but yeah, I don't know, when she's running for her life, and then gets blasted, and I don't know about you, but the sound. The sound that the gun makes when they fire that gun is, you hear gunshots in movies all the time, but there's something so scary about the way the Blade Runner gun sounds when it goes off. It sounds painful. You know what I mean? And when she goes crashing through the glass and all that kind of stuff and falls over dead, it's sad. Like it is. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but when they turn her over, if you watch her face, a little tear goes down her. She's dead, but a little tear falls down.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it's these little subtle touches that brings out these gut wrenching human moments of these poor replicants,
and also the amazing music, which we haven't mentioned. The Vangelis music is perfect during the Zora chase as well. Like the moody synth underscoring the sadness, and it's perfect.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. The Zora stuff, I think that is one of my highlights of the film. I love that. That then kind of followed very closely by the Roy Batty section of the film. I think are two just fantastic. But no, I think the music as well. We can't not talk about Vangelis. Perfect.
Have you guys ever seen the work print version?
I have it on one of my DVDs, but I've not watched it yet.
Yeah, because it doesn't include the scores, so it's a very good version of the movie because it's almost complete. It's just a few effects shots and a few. Well, there's, for example, even the title screen is different, but the score was not ready yet. So it's a very different mood that you get when you watch the work print. Yeah. It's definitely recommended because it's really it's totally watchable on its own, which is rare for a work print because of course normally it's in a very rough shape, but this one's really almost complete. So yeah, quite cool.
Well, when we come back for another Blade Runner episode, we'll do Blade Runner work print because that would be fun. In terms of other scenes, is there anything else that you want to dive into? Is there anything else you want to talk about the Roy Batty? Should we talk about Roy Batty's final moments and final scenes? I think it would be remiss if we didn't touch upon that before we kind of begin to close things up.
Yeah, sure. If perhaps Matt can lead off at this time.
Well, as I say, it's his final speech, which is actually quite short, but absolutely knockout, is right up there for me in the best of movie monologues. It's well up there with the Indianapolis speech from Jaws, which I think is my favorite of all time, but this is a very close second. And like the Indianapolis speech, it has the actor's input in it, albeit not to as great an extent. It's so iconic and it's so important that I think it even has its own Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it does. That's
I don't know many.
That's unique.
I don't know many monologues cinematic monologues that do have. And I think it's a perfect end for Roy Batty, and the delivery from Rutger Hauer is just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can sort of gloss over Ford's acting to it. The famous thing that part of acting is reacting. His look of understanding and compassion and realization and sadness that he's been chasing and trying to kill this person when this person has seen things that he can't even dream of, is really powerful, and it goes hand in hand with that delivery. This is almost one of the most perfect acting scenes for me because it's brilliantly delivered and it's brilliantly reacted to, and I think it deserves, every applaud it can get. I just think and it's an amazing end to a brilliant film. Yeah,
it's also remarkable because some of the stuff that Rutger Hauer is saying is batshit insane. It's almost George Lucas level of stupid. I've seen C-beams glitter in the dark. What the hell is a effing C-beam? Like what? But he pulls it off and makes me believe that he has seen a C-beam. Whatever the hell is C-beam, this guy has seen it.
Yeah, and you don't need to know what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't care what it is. The fact he's seen it and it's something that he's remembered and marveled at is all I need to know.
Yes.
The Tannhauser Gate is the only thing that I think is a real thing, by which I mean comes from something else. It's from Wagner, but the rest of it I think is just totally made up. It just means nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
I was just going to say, but the imagery, all of which is so powerful because of the way he delivers it. If I read this speech out, nobody would care, but when Rutger Hauer does it, everyone remembers it. It's absolutely it's just a perfect combination. They say cinema is a collaborative process.
Sure.
This proves it.
I love the for example the subtle pause. He sort of there's a sort of a cuff when he says all those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. And then I love the fact that when he says tears, his voice sort of goes up, tears, but then it comes down in rain. It's amazing. It's what's the word? It's one of the hardest words for me in English. It's a soliloquy. Is that what it is? Soliloquy?
Yeah.
It's a soliloquy. Yeah.
That's a hard word. But it's I think it's one of my favorite monologues in the history of cinema. It's so moving and defining, and I don't know, just the way it really comes down to Rutger Hauer's amazing acting, because there are lots of great actors, and I'm sure that Daniel Day-Lewis would do a great job, but there is something about how he said it, and the fact that he co-wrote it as well, because we haven't mentioned that, because the original speech was longer and more operatic and dramatic, and according to behind the scenes, Howard just said prior to shooting, said, "This is too much. I'm just gonna cut it down to the essence, to what I really want to say," and then he improvised the Tears in Rain bit. So the combination of the excellent acting, the fact that he had a hand in it, and his just the dramatic pauses he puts in his speech, it's sort of the combination of all these things that makes it the perfect speech.
And what he cuts is deservedly cut, because the original talks about attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion, bright as magnesium.
Yeah.
And then he says he rode on the back decks of a blinker and watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. And all those moments, they'll be gone. That's the original version.
Yeah.
And, you can just see that cutting some of that and ad-libbing and adding bits to keep the essence, but just tighten it up, was all to the improvement of it.
There's I think during one of the script read-throughs, he did some improvisation even on that bit. And I think this was Hampton. Fancher. I think it was him. He was sort of like intimidated by it and a little bit annoyed by this improvisation that Rutger Hauer had done, but then ultimately realized what he was doing was good, and the intimidation came from the fact that it's like, man, I wish I had written that. Because I mean that and then we get that, Gaff turns up once more, and delivers that oh so confusing line, you've done a man's job. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does? And
which was apparently also improvised by Edward James Olmos. Also a great moment of clarity in the actor's life. Yeah.
Yes. And again, we should, Edward's performance again. I don't want to not mention this. He was fantastic, but also the city speak stuff is all him. It's and I loved his dedication to authenticity and this is partly what makes this this film feel like a real lived-in world, and that is what they're doing to make it authentic, to make it feel like people live here. This is how people talk in the streets. I love that dedication that he put into this, and I love the character of Gaff. I think what little bits we get of Gaff are fantastic, and I think we go from an incredible final scene with Rutger Hauer to a wonderful final line from Gaff, that both of these things just make you think so much. That there's a couple extra lines of dialogue between Ford and Young and at the end there, but what really sticks with you are those two final moments, and then Deckard's dialogueless holding of the unicorn. Just as endings go, the final cut ending to me is perfect. Is a perfect ending. The theatrical cut where they're driving off into the sunset, and then I don't need that. I don't need that happy ending. We've complained about this on many episodes where I've been annoyed by The Big Sleep or Murder My Sweet, where they give these adaptations of classic noir movies or noir books, that have downbeat, sad endings, these happy endings. And I love the fact that Ridley Scott's like, nope, in my version, you don't know what their ending is. And perfect, just perfect. Any other final thoughts that you guys want to touch upon before we wrap up and give our rating?
One thing I've never understood. So Roy Batty, you can see his inception date is 8 January of 2016. Mm-hmm. Which is, by the way, David Bowie's birthday. And it's really, really weird, by the way, because he died in 2016, David Bowie. So it was really weird. So you could say that Roy Batty is like the reincarnation of David Bowie. No, that's a tangent too far.
Well, and also, I think that, sorry to interrupt, but I think David Bowie quoted from Batty's speech at his brother's funeral. I think he left a note at his brother's funeral, his half brother's funeral. Saying you've seen things you can only imagine, and you'll be lost to practice. I'm sure he did.
Oh, cool. No, I didn't know that. But anyway, Roy Batty is born on the 8th of January 2016. I never understood why he dies in November of 2019 when he has a 4-year lifespan. He should die in January of 2020. And I've never found a real answer to that conundrum. I don't know why he dies before he reaches the 4-year lifespan.
My reading on that is I don't read it as it's a 4-year, a perfect 4-year lifespan. Okay. I read it like a car, like, oh, this car should last this amount of time. And he's close enough to the incept date that it's he's now running down, and he knows that he's running down. He's running out of time. So if he doesn't get life soon, he's got at most he's got a couple of months left to live. That was my reading on it. I might be wrong, but that's how I've sort of read that.
That's a perfect.
Makes sense though, doesn't it? Makes sense.
Yeah.
Blade Runner mysteries solved here on Mean Streets.
and also, perhaps as a final, how eerie is it that Rutger Hauer passed away in 2019? So that's life imitates art.
Yeah.
He died in the year that Roy Batty dies. Really eerie. But
I didn't clock that. Yeah, that is eerie. And what a loss! I love Rutger Hauer.
One of the best to ever do it. I think it's also the most successful Dutch actor to ever make it in Hollywood. I don't think he has any peers in that regard. He really was a worldwide famous actor, and that's not a given for someone from the Netherlands or Belgium even. So he did a man's job, you could say.
He did a man's job. He did. He's also he played Morgan Edge in one of my favorite TV shows, Smallville. There we go. I got a Smallville reference in this one. He's Rutger Hauer. You really can't go wrong with Rutger Hauer.
And he's terrifying in The Hitcher.
Yeah,
in the 80s horror film The Hitcher, he's terrifying in it.
Yes,
some awful things.
Have you guys ever seen his some of his Dutch movies? Have you guys ever some of his Paul Verhoeven? Paul Verhoeven and who of course also made it big in Hollywood. But before they went to Hollywood, they made some movies together. And if you guys ever have the chance to check them out with English subtitles, they're very recommended because they I think they sort of bounced off of each other, and they're both guys. Their genius amplified their output. So amazing. Paul Verhoeven is an amazing director, and Rutger was an amazing actor. So when they worked together, you got dynamite results. So
I'll have to check it out. I've not seen them, but
no,
definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend it.
Excellent.
Nice. Any other?
Not from me.
No, I think we've sort of covered. Yeah, I think we've covered quite a bit with this. We can save the is Alien and Blade Runner in the same universe or not for another time.
Show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's time to rate the film. So Julian and those who are listening for the first time, on each of our episodes, we rate the movie out of 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. So it's time to rate Blade Runner, the final cut. Julian, we'll start with you as the guest. Out of 5 Falcons, what would you give Blade Runner?
Yes, I'm always very stingy with my stars, because, for example, I also have like a Letterboxd account, and
same.
It's really hard for me to give out 5 stars because 5 stars implies perfection, and we all know that perfection is very hard to achieve. However, having said that, Blade Runner is, when I did a sort of a rundown or a top 40 of my favorite films of all time, Blade Runner was number 15. So that is quite high. There are only 14 movies that I would consider better than Blade Runner. So bearing that in mind, I think I do have to give 5 stars to Blade Runner because it is one of the 15 best movies of all time to me. So yeah, 5 Falcons. In this case, perhaps white doves. 5 white doves.
Yeah. Nice.
Very much well deserved. Yeah.
I'm going to echo that. I'm very stingy with mine, but yes, for me, Blade Runner is hands down 5 Falcons. 5 Falcons. I love this movie. It's perfect. It's perfect for me. Matt?
Yeah, I'm normally more generous than Luke, and so I'm probably more generous than you, Julian. But I think on this it's easy for the design, for the look of it, for the story, for the acting, Ford and Rutger Hauer in particular. For the whole cinematic shebang, it's a 5 Falcons from me.
Indeed. And there we are, Blade Runner, everybody. Happy 70th episode for us. Julian, thanks for coming and hanging out and chatting Blade Runner for a couple hours.
Yeah, thanks. I loved it.
This was a lot of fun. Where can people find you, Julian, if they so choose?
Well, my podcast is in Dutch, sadly, so that's not a big recommendation. I could give you I have a YouTube account that's in English. So if people want to watch some short things I do, I review laser discs, etc., sort of nerdy things. So I'm on YouTube. Just type in my name, Julian De Baker, and then you can find me. And if you like, please subscribe, because why not?
Yes.
It would be lovely to one day make a buck out of out of my nerdy videos.
Exactly.
But I'm a long way to go. I only have like 1,200 subscribers, something like that. So long way.
Well, you got more than us, so.
Well, but you guys are getting there. It's
slowly.
Yeah, surely but slowly. So
yes, but no, your channel's great. I love your physical media reviews, because you talk about stuff that. What was it like? You did like one like The Land Before Time recently, or
Yeah, I compared all formats, so the VHS, the DVD, the Laserdisc, the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So I have lots of Land Before Time copies. That's actually that's one of my top 5 movies of all time. That's my favorite animated movie, actually. So
interesting.
Yeah, I adore it. So if you guys ever, it's not a film noir, so
no.
But if you guys ever decide to tackle The Land Before Time,
if we have some sort of reason to bring in Land Before Time, so that
what could be the reason? the volcano's ash was noir. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe a Patreon exclusive. That'd be about the.
That's the way. Well,
by all means, give me a call and I'll be there to
You Bagsied it.
Talk about The Land Before Time for 3 hours.
Fantastic. Well, again, Julian, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
This was a lot of fun, but yeah, we've thoroughly investigated Blade Runner, so I think it's time to close the file, put it in the drawer, and call this case closed. But in the meantime, do like and subscribe. Everyone who's listened, if you can, leave a review on Spotify or Apple. It really helps us out. Make sure you go and follow Julian everywhere you can, and remember to take care walking down those mean streets.